Let's quickly navigate into my AWS account and I'll just start off the session. I'll go ahead. So in the last part of our class, we learned in detail about what are security groups, and we also learned about a bootstrap lab. And today we are going to get forward and learn more about few more things about EC2 section, that is with the volumes and the snapshots, and then the instance metadata and the placement groups. So let's quickly get started with it. So first thing is we are going to look out what is a volume, what is a snapshot. Now we know that there are two different types of storage basically. One is object-based storage and one is block-based storage. When we talk about the object-based storage, it is all about S3, and when we talk about the block-based storage, it is about EBS, that is Elastic Block Store. And now whatever volumes we are trying to create when we are spinning up a EC2 instance, we specifically have the EBS volumes. Earlier, there used to be one more type of volumes which is called as instance store. We are going to look about it, but anyway, we do not make use of it in real time in the production for any case because they are not reliable anymore. So as a persistent and a better place of storage, EBS is the one that is preferred. It is Elastic Block Store. So let's quickly go ahead and check out in the part of lab. Okay, so there I am in my AWS account. I'll quickly navigate to the services and then the EC2 section. Okay, so if I scroll on the left hand side a little bit, we will be able to see that we are using Elastic Block Store and in which we have volumes and the snapshots. Now, until now, whatever instances we have launched, it just had one single volume, which was basically called as a root volume itself. Let's quickly go ahead and launch it, one of them. So I'm going to pick up Amazon Linux AMI here. General purpose T2 micro, which is again a part of our free tier eligibility. I'll just go ahead and pick that up. And then the number of instances is going to be 1 for me. I'm going to launch it in my default VPC, which is available in every region. And just ensure that the public IP setting is at enable so that I get an IP address to log in into this EC2 instance. And I'll leave everything else default here and then just go ahead and add storage. So here is the place where I'll be able to add the extra volumes, whatever are required for me. And as a part of the extra volumes, we do first see the option that delete on termination option is not checked, which means whenever I'm going to terminate my EC2 instance, right, automatically the root volume gets deleted. This is because this flag is checked up here. Delete on termination is by default enabled for the root device. but for the extra volumes that we have, it is not enabled. We can enable while we are going to launch the system. And one more thing is, I can go ahead and encrypt the extra volumes whatever are being attached to this EC2 instance. So if I want to go ahead and encrypt this, I'll just go ahead and check this option, and it will basically help me to encrypt this volume. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'll remove all the volumes. We will add extra volume from outside. Let's see what happens there. I'll just go to adding the tags. I'll just say name, my volumes lab. So whatever tags you are basically applying here, it automatically gets applied to all the volumes currently we have put up in the step number 4. So I have just got one volume here. So the same tags are automatically being carried out to the volumes as well, right? Instance will anyway have it. Volumes are also going to carry the same tags, whatever I'm going to apply here. So I'm going to select the security group here. So I'm going to select the SSH security group where the port 22 is opened up. Maybe I'll have to change the source. I'm not sure if the IP address has changed. Currently, it is just logged down to my IP address. Just go ahead and review and launch. And just quickly launch one by using one of the key pair that we have created yesterday. That is Virginia key pair. Yeah. Now, why do we encrypt the data? Let's say I'm trying to send one hard disk from my place to your place with the help of courier or something else. So data, actually, I have picked up my data from my on-premises server, or maybe from my computer. I have just picked it up and put it in the hard disk, and that hard disk, now I'm trying to go ahead and send it to you. Let's say someone grabs that hard disk in between. So what happens? So he will be able to connect to his computer or laptop, and he'll be able to copy everything from that. And maybe if he's done with his work, he'll put it back on the track wherever it has to go. So if I encrypt the data, if someone tries to steal in between, he'll not be able to get the hold of data itself. That is the reason we encrypt it. Now let's say tomorrow Amazon data centers are being attacked by someone. Like, we have got a lot of hijackers, or maybe we have got some people who can physically go ahead and destroy the complete data centers itself. So if they go down to the data center and they say, okay, we want the hold of all the devices that are there inside your data center, just give us everything. And if they get hold of all these hard disks and other thing, do you really think they'll be able to get data? No. If we encrypt the data, they'll not even be able to open it, what is there inside those hard disks. That is the reason whenever we are working in corporate environments, you see our laptops will have some encryption like McAfee encryption or semantic McAfee encryption, and there's one more, PGP encryptions. So these PGP encryptions or the McAfee encryptions will be already enabled with your employee ID, or maybe with your email ID of your company, because if your laptops are being stolen off, they will not, anyone who gets a hold of this laptop, they'll not be able to do anything with that hard disk, or they'll not be able to retrieve any data. So that is a major reason why we encrypt the data. So there are two ways of encryption, as we learned in the, if you remember, we learned in the S3 lab. There are two ways of encryption. One is about in transit, and while the data is being stored at rest. So when it is in transit, it means like when I'm delivering this session to you guys, so whether it is encrypted or not, right? So since we are using this global GoToMeeting win, which is basically an encrypted one, so HTTPS is basically something that helps me to know whether the channel that we are using is encrypted or not. So if someone really gets a hold of let's say my internet connection in between, and they say that I am able to see whatever Pawan is doing, let's track it out. They'll not be able to do all the things. Of course, if there are some things that I'm trying to do over the HTTP connection, they will be. No, currently up to 30 GB of data, whatever we are playing with on the EBS volumes, it is not chargeable. And EBS and encryption is specifically moreover chargeable when we are going to use the KMS method, that is key management service, which actually gives me more information on from what IP address, who tried to use this key to decrypt the data and other things. Right? So the AWS KMS is the one that is going to charge you something up when you're going to use it. And remember, we will be able to create our own AWS KMS keys from the IAM section. So here are the encryption keys, which will be specifically possible to set it up from here. So these are specifically about AWS KMS keys. Those are chargeable. Okay, coming back to our lab here. So we were discussing about the volumes part. So if I scroll down these properties of the instance, it is basically going to show me how many block devices are attached to this EC2 instance. So currently it is only one, and the same is basically called as root device. And remember, the root device will be always called with this name /dev/xvda. So root devices will always be called with the name /dev/xvda or /dev/xvda1, or we can also call it as HDA or HDA1. So these are the only possible names that our root device is going to have across. So just remember this. We'll try to do one practical part where, let's say I lose my key pair. How do I recover it back? So once we are going to complete this EC2 section, I'm going to show you one practical possible scenario how this /dev/SDA are going to basically help me out. Usually the root devices come with this specific name. Now let's say I want to, after the instance is being launched, I want to attach more volumes to this EC2 instance. How do we do it? Just go down to the volume section. You can create extra volumes, whatever you want. Let's say I want to create one more volume of general purpose SSD drive. I want to just create, let's say, of 2 GB size. And in which availability zone I should create it, because I want to attach it to EC2 instance. Now remember, the EC2 instances whichever are being launched are availability zone specific, right? So whatever volume I'm going to create, this is also going to be a availability zone specific. And currently I have 6 availability zones, so I'm not sure my EC2 instance is part of which one. Just let's go ahead and first find it out. So it is a part of US East 1B. So if I try to launch volume in some other availability zone in this North Virginia region, I'll not be able to attach it. I have to specifically go ahead and launch this volume in US East 1B itself. This is a root volume. I'll go ahead and create one more. And throughput, which is not applicable because we are using general purpose SSD. So we are going to get the IOPS, that is 100 IOPS are baseline IOPS that we are going to get. But normally we get only 3 IOPS per 1 GB. But since we are just using out 2 GB of size, automatically a baseline of IOPS is minimum 100 that is being provided by Amazon. And snapshot, currently I do not have any. And if you want to encrypt this volume, you can go ahead and click on this to encrypt this. And if you want to use the default key which is available, or you can also go ahead and create your own keys, like I have a couple of them here in the AWS KMS I have just created. So I'm not going to encrypt this volume for a while. I'll just remove. And then tags. So if you want to add the tag to your volume, which should be a little different, I'll just say name my new volume. And then go ahead and click on create, and this is going to create a volume successfully. So now if I go ahead and say close, you see I have just created one new volume which has got the specific tag of my new volume, and the size is 2 GB. It is of GP2, and currently it is again a part of US East 1B itself. And whatever volume is specifically attached to EC2 instance, it will be shown in green color and it says in use. And if it is not attached to any instance, it just shows it is available. I'll scroll a little more. Here it will also show the attachment information to which EC2 instance it is attached, right? And here you will be able to find whether it is attached as a root volume or an extra volume. So as we know, /dev/xvda is basically a root volume. Now let's quickly go ahead and attach this new volume to the EC2 instance. I'll click on the actions. I'll click on the attach volume, and then it says instance in US East 1B. So as I just said you, whatever volume we are going to create, it is just going to be a part of that specific availability zone. So if I have an instance in US East 1B availability zone, then I'll be able to attach this volume. Let's try to search. Yes, I do have my instance in the US East 1B, and it says the device name is going to be /dev/sdf. And it also gives me one small note. It says newer Linux kernels may rename your devices to /dev/xvdf through xvdp internally, even when the device name entered here is as shown as /dev/sdf, but still it will be renamed. So let's see what happens. Externally, the name will be shown as /dev/sdf, but internally it will become xvdf. Remember, the same thing happens here. Sometimes it will show it as /dev/sda, but it will be internally xvda. And it might show sometimes as sda1, it becomes xvda1. Basically, externally it shows sometimes with the symbol s, but it is xv internally. Same happens here. It comes as hdf, it becomes xvdf. So let's go ahead and attach this. So the moment I attach, now you see this volume is now being shown up in the green color. So which means it is successfully being attached to this. So I'll quickly refresh this once again. Yeah. So I'll now go back to instance. I'll pick up the IP address of this instance, and let's go down and look in what I can do with it. I'll just go ahead and copy this. I'll open the PuTTY terminal. There we go. I am getting inside the EC2 instance. So it's going to ask me to verify the key fingerprint. I'll say yes, and then I log in as EC2-user. So the very first thing I'm going to do is elevate my privileges. So sudo space su is going to help me to elevate my privileges. And the next thing I'm going to do in here is I need to find out what all block devices are basically attached to this EC2 instance. So I'll just say lsblk, and it is going to help me find out all the block devices which are attached to this EC2 instance. So it says it has the one with the name xvda, which actually has an internal partition of XVDA1 and the size is 8 GB, and it is basically mounted to this specific point. And there is one more volume that we have just attached some time back, and it is with the name XVDF, and it is of size 2 GB, and currently it is not mounted anywhere. So we are going to go ahead and mount this volume, and we are going to start using it. So currently the root volume is mounted, so I can go ahead and do anything in this, right? So if I just say pwd, it is going to show me present working directory. So I'm inside /home/ec2-user. Similarly, if I want to go inside this xvdf volume and play around with it, first I need to create a mount point, and then I'll be able to do across. So let's go ahead and do it. But first thing I have to do is I have to find out if there is file system built on top of this volume. Whenever I have a empty volume, I just need to have a file system to be built on top of it. In order to store the files in a correct format or in a correct way, I need to have a file system. So if you see in our normal Windows laptops or computers, if I right click on any drive and just go and say properties, you see it will show you the file system is basically NTFS. So Windows basically follows NTFS file systems. And if you specifically check out for the pen drives which are less than 32 GB or 64 GB, they will have a file system of FAT32, right? So for smaller devices we use FAT32. For the little higher devices in Windows we have NTFS. Similarly in Linux we have ext4, which is most widely used file system, and then we have XFS, which is yet higher in size. So if you have more than 100 GB of size in the hard disks, I guess that is where we use the XFS file systems. So currently we are going to make use of ext4 file system. So let me show you what is the file system basically which is available for this one, XVDA. So how do we find it out? File -s/dev/xvda, and if I just say XVDA1, there we go. So as I said, XVDA basically has a main partition of XVDA1. So the file system will be actually based on the XVDA1. Now it basically shows me that this is a Linux based machine where it has got ext4 file system built on top of it, and it has got some files already stored on this, right, which helps me to know that there is some data inside this volume. Now let's go ahead and check the same thing for the other one. File -s/dev/xvdf. So it says just data, which means there is nothing on top of this. So basically I'll have to go ahead and create one file system here. Before that, just give me a second. Okay, I'll just put on the steps that we are going to do across. Okay, so the first thing is, how did we check out what are the volumes or partitions which are available for my EC2 instance? We basically used lsblk, right? Here, if you remember, I just used lsblk as a command to list out all the block devices that are attached to this EC2 instance. After that, I tried to check in if there is any file system created. So how do we check it? Basically, this is a command file -s, and then just say whatever volume you want to check for, right? So we specifically checked for slash dev slash xvda, and then we also checked it for slash dev slash xvdf. After that, we just came to know that there is no data on this xvdf. So let's go ahead and create one new file system on top of it. So how do I go and create it? Specifically, I have this command that is make file system. So I'll just go ahead and put it here. I'll just first clear the screen. I'll just check file minus s slash dev slash xvdf. So currently we do not have anything. That's why it just shows data. So I'm just going to go ahead and create the file system. So how do we do it? So I'll just say mkfs. Mkfs basically stands for make file system. And then what kind of file system I want to make? I'll just have to say minus t, that is type. ext4 is the file system that I want to create, on which which volume I would like to create. It is on slash dev slash xvdf. The command is very simple. mkfs is basically make file system. Minus t basically stands for the type, and ext4 is the type I'm going to put across. And on which volume I'm going to create? I'm going to create it on slash dev slash xvdf. Now if I go ahead and say enter, there we go. It has actually created the file system on top of this. Now let's go ahead and again run this command file minus s slash dev slash xvdf. You see, we are now able to see that there's a ext4 file system which is being created, and there could be some files which are already stored on this. Now, how do we see what are the files? Now, if you remember, whenever you purchase empty hard disk from the market, whether it is a Seagate or Western Digital hard disks, you will not be able to directly use it with the MacBooks, right? So if you have to use it Windows laptops, you will be immediately able to use it, but for the MacBooks, you will not be able to use it because MacBooks are mostly on the Linux base, which require a different file system, right? So it's not easier for me to have a same hard disk that can be connected to the MacBooks as well as the Windows laptops. So that's the reason they specifically mention while we are purchasing in the product description that it is a plug and play, but it is for Windows systems. So in case if you want it, you may have to change the complete file system, and there will be certain folders, right? Whenever the file system is being created by those companies, you will be able to see that there is some small folder with the lost and found, something will be just available, or recycle bin, some small things will be available once the file system is created. Similarly, for our case also, there will be something available inside this volume. Now, how do we check it? So we'll have to specifically go ahead and mount this volume, and then only I'll be able to start using it. Let's go ahead and mount this. So in order to mount it, I'll have to first create a directory or a folder, and then on top of it, I'll be able to mount it. Now, specifically, if you see in the Windows, we have mount point like D drive, E drive, and then I'm going to mount it across, right? Similarly, I have to create a mount point, and then I'll be able to start using it. So to create a mount point, I need to first create some folder. So let's say I would create folder with the name slash pawan here. So mkdir is basically make directory. So I'll just say slash pawan, and then I'm just going to go ahead and mount this. So how do I mount it? So specifically, I get this option mount. So what is the volume that I want to mount? Slash dev slash xvdf. And where do I want to mount it? Slash pawan is the place where I want to mount it across. So it is successfully mounted. So now if I want to check if it is successfully mounted or not, just say lsblk, and you will be able to see that the mount point has been successfully created. So if I go back and change my directory to slash pawan cd slash pavan, and now I'm inside the pawan. If I just say ls, it is going to show me something like lost plus found is some small folder or a directory that is already created inside this new volume with the name xvdf. So we are inside this volume. So let's go ahead and create a couple of files. I'll just say nano. I'll just try to create some index.html file. I just create some random file here. Okay. So we were able to successfully create one file with the name index.html. Similarly, let's go ahead and create a couple of more files. I'll just say nano, and I'll just create training.txt. I'm just going to create some text file. This is a random text file. So I'm going to save it, Control X, Y, and then enter. So this is going to save my file. Now if I say ls, it is basically going to show me that there are two files with the name index.html and training.txt, which we have successfully stored inside this xvdf volume. Now let's say I want to go ahead and unmount this volume. This specific case of let's say we get a requirement that this volume which is being attached to this EC2 instance. Now I want to attach the same volume to some other EC2 instance. So I want to remove it from here and I want to attach it there. So how do we proceed in this case? So it's very simple. First thing is I have to come out of this Pawan directory because this is where we have mounted it. So I'll have to first come out of that. So I'll just say cd dot dot. So it is going to change my directory one level back, and then I'm just going to go ahead and say umount is basically called as unmount, that is /dev/xvdf. And now if I say lsblk, you'll be able to see that this specific xvdf volume has been successfully unmounted. So now what I can do, I can go back to console, I can go back to volumes, and then click on my new volume, and then just say go ahead and say detach volume. So I can go ahead and specifically detach this from this EC2 instance, and I'll be able to attach it to any new EC2 instance. Before I do a detach, I would just like to show you one small thing here. So now if you go to the instance which is with the name my volume slag, if I go and scroll down here, you will be able to see that there are it shows all the block devices which are attached to this EC2 instance, and specifically there are two of them, /dev/xvda and /dev/sdf, and out of these two the root volume is basically /dev/xvda. Okay, let's go back and detach this volume. There we go, we have been successfully able to detach this volume. Now can we actually attach one volume to the multiple EC2 instances? No, it is not possible. It is like I have a one hard disk and I want to attach it to multiple computers at the same time, and will not be able to attach a single hard disk to multiple computers at a very same time. Similarly, I cannot have one volume which can be attached to multiple instances. But if I want to have the same kind of same data, whatever is available in this volume, I want to attach it to some other EC2 instance. So how do I do it? Specifically, we have something called as snapshot. Snapshot is nothing but point in time copy of the volume. So currently whatever is the content available in this volume, I can go ahead and create a snapshot of it, and then I'll recreate a new volume with with this snapshot, and that volume I'll basically attach it to the new EC2 instance. So that can be in same region or it can be in some other region itself. Let's say I have got one other EC2 instance which is in Mumbai region, and I want to specifically attach the volume with this, which is the name my new volume, and I want to have exactly the same data whatever is here, and I want to go ahead and attach it to the instance which is in Mumbai region. So it is directly not possible, but what we can do is I'll just go ahead and pick up a snapshot of this volume, and that snapshot I'm going to share it across to the Mumbai region, and from that snapshot I'm going to recreate a new volume, and then I'll be able to attach it to the EC2 instance. So that is a way of helping the EC2 instance get attached to a volume, but again will not be able to have a sync, because if this new volume is going to get a lot of data inside it, we will not be able to sync it across. So we'll either have to do some jobs set up in terms of cron tab, or maybe we'll have to set up some sync jobs. So we, with the help of which we'll be able to sync across the data between the volumes. How? Okay, so now the next thing is how to start creating the snapshot. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this, create snapshot. I'll just say my first snap. Since my volume is not encrypted, my snapshot will also be not encrypted. So I'll just go ahead and say create. Just say close. I'll just be back in a minute. In the meantime, I'll just put it on the snapshots here. You can see the progress. Currently it is in pending. It is going to change down to completed in little while. Okay, so there we go. You can see that our first snapshot is successfully completed off. So it takes a little while for the snapshot to complete. You can also see the progress here. I will just refreshes. There we go. Here it shows the progress, and currently it is 100%, which means it has been successfully able to create a snapshot. That was the first part of our lab where we just learned how to adding the data, and then how do we mount it and unmount it, right? So that was all about this first part of our lab in the volumes and the snapshots, and then we just created a snapshot at final step. So what can I do with this snapshot? So with this snapshot, I'll be able to go ahead and let's check out an action. I can straight away delete the snapshot if it is not required. I can create a new volume with the help of this snapshot. Let's say currently it is just of 2 GB size, and tomorrow I get a requirement that I want to increase the size of my volume. So how do we do it? This is one way of doing it. Yeah. So why snapshots? So let's say sometimes I get a requirement that I want to go ahead and increase the size of existing volume, which is of 2 GB. Now the space is not enough, but I would like to go ahead and increase it. So how can we do it? Specifically, we can take a snapshot, and once the snapshot is created, I can go ahead and create a new volume out of it. And when I create a new volume, I do get option to go ahead and change the size. Let's say I want to go directly to 10 GB from 2, right? So I can just say 10 GB of size for the new volume, and that can be of type general purpose. So the beauty here is if you want to shift down to magnetic from SSD, let's say you want to save the cost, and so you want to go back to magnetic drives, so you can always select the type of volume from the snapshot. Since it is magnetic, I don't have any IOPS available here. And then again, it does ask me in which availability zone I would like to launch. So if I have my EC2 instance in US East 1A, I should be launching this in US East 1A. Since currently my instance is in US East 1B, I'll just go ahead and put it as US East 1B. And since my snapshot was not encrypted, I'll not be able to get a volume that is being encrypted here, right? So that's why it says not encrypted. And if I want to add any extra tags, I'll be able to add it across from here. So let's say I just want to increase only to 5 GB of size for a while. I'll just go ahead and say create volume. I'll just go ahead and close this. So what did we do? We actually recreated a new volume with the help of a snapshot. Let's go ahead and check whether it's created. Yes, there it is. And let's see where it is created. It's been created as a part of US East 1B, and currently it is in available state, which means it is not attached to any EC2 instance. So I'll just go back to instance here. I'll just say lsblk. You see, I don't have any extra volume attached because we have detached the first volume, which was of size 2 GB. Now let's say I want to attach back the volume which is of size 5 GB. I'll just click on this. I'll say actions and then say attach volume, and then again I'll search for the EC2 instance, put it here, and then just say attach. Now if I go back to the EC2 instance, I'll just say lsblk. There we go. I'm able to see that the new volume of size 5 GB is being attached. Let's see if I have got all the data that we created some time back. So I'll have to again go back. I'll have to first create a mount point for this. So we can use the same mount point, that is /pawan, or if you want, you can go ahead and create a new one as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say mount /dev/xvdf to /pawan. And now if I go down to the /pawan folder, and now if I say ls, you see I have got the files with the name index.html and the training.txt again back, right? So if I go back a level, unmount this, yeah, I'm doing all the commands at a root level itself, because root user will have better privileges in case if I want to create a file. Currently the normal EC2 user doesn't even have the authority to create any new file inside this. That is the only reason I'm just elevated my privileges, so that we'll be able to do the labs swiftly. In the real time, we basically create multiple users who has got a set of permissions, what they can do inside a system. So now again we have removed the mount point. Let's say I would just like to go inside that space /power and see if there is anything. If I say ls, you see there's nothing actually inside the /power directory. Basically, when we create it as a mount point and attach it to some volume, it is basically showing me the data inside this volume. So this is how I can basically increase the size of a existing volume if I want to. So the one way is basically just go ahead and create a snapshot of the existing volume, and from the snapshot recreate a volume of the higher size. And let's see what all we can do with the snapshots yet. So I can delete it if I want to. I can create a new volume. I can also create an image out of this. If you want to specifically create an image, you will be able to create an image. So we are going to learn about the image in very upcoming sessions. Maybe tomorrow's session we'll be discussing about it. And then if I want to copy this same snapshot to some other region, right? Let's say, as I said, I have two EC2 instances, one in Mumbai region and one in North Virginia. So let's say I want to have a copy of the volume which needs to be attached to the instance in the Mumbai region. So how do we do it? Specifically I'll have to create a snapshot of the existing volume. Then I'll just click on the copy part of the snapshot, and then it's asked me where is the destination region where you would like to store it across. So I'll say I would like to transfer it to Mumbai region, and it will automatically get this description copied from so and so snapshot from the US East 1, right? And specifically we get this option encrypt this snapshot. So this is the place where we actually get this option, right? Actually my volume is not encrypted, so my snapshot is also not encrypted. But when I'm trying to copy a snapshot from one region to other, that is when I do get the option to encrypt it. So I'll be able to encrypt it here, and then I'll be able to send it across. So currently I'm going to leave it as is and just cancel this. So this is basically how we copy it. And next, what is the action we have? We can modify the permissions. Just click on modify permissions. Now basically the permissions is public or private. Now if I want to share this snapshot with, let's say, Rahul, Divya, or Shiva, or someone else, Kirti, someone here, right? So what can I do? I just need to have their AWS account number and I'll be able to share it with them directly, right? So if I want to share this snapshot privately, so I just need to give the AWS account number and share it. It is same like Google Drive. Let's say if I put some data on the Google Drive, I'll basically require your Gmail ID for the sharing the content only to you. Similarly here, if I want to just share this snapshot with you guys, I just need your AWS account number, and if I click add permission, automatically is going to go ahead and save it. But let's say if I want to make it public, so it will be available for everyone. So I'll just say public and then say save. It is going to be available publicly. Now if you want to see what are the snapshots which are available by publicly, just click on this owned by me. You will be able to see the public snapshots. So there are immense number of public snapshots which are available in each region. So people experimenting would have created a lot of public snapshots. So these are some of them here. Some of them are playing on the Ubuntu machines, some of them are playing on Fedora machines. Yeah. So currently, since we are using the 30 GB of space as a part of volumes and snapshots, anything under the 30 GB is going to be free. There's no charge on that specific portion. So when you're going to copy, snapshot is basically point in time of copy, right? So it is just going to copy the snapshot as is, right? And snapshots are basically stored on S3 as a part of object-based storage. So when you're going to create a volume out of it, it becomes block-based storage. So snapshots are basically point-in-time copy, and that is something like a object, right? So it is basically stored in S3, and it is a part of object-based storage. And when you're going to recreate a volume out of that snapshot, it becomes a block-based storage. So all the snapshots what I'm seeing are basically object-based storage. So it is specifically stored on S3. Now when I'm going to recreate a volume, let's say I select this snapshot and then say I want to recreate a volume out of it, then it becomes a block-based storage. And at the time you get an option whether you want to create it as a magnetic or whether you want to create it as a SSD drive. So when I'm trying to store the data in S3, it doesn't ask me for this kind of thing, whether it's going to be SSD or magnetic, because S3 is durable and mostly it does make use of SSD drives itself, because when it guarantees a durability of 11 nines, it has to be something special, right? We do know that our magnetic drives can get corrupted at any point of time. So if you want a better storage, it is always going to be a SSD. So that was about public snapshots and the private snapshots. If I go ahead and see, it will also show me if there are any snapshots which are privately shared with me, right? So currently I do not have any private snapshots shared with me by anyone else. So I'll just go to owned by me. So it's going to just show me the snapshots that I am currently owning it up. And the last action that I can do is add or edit the tags. So I can add the tags or edit the tags for the existing snapshots. So that was all about snapshots. Any questions here on the snapshots? Yeah, if the root volume is corrupted and the instance is unable to boot. Good question. So what we basically do is, first thing is, I'll have to first shut down the instance so that there are no input output operations happening on this root volume. So let's say this is the volume itself, which is of 8 GB in size. So what I can do is I can just go ahead and shut down the first instance, and then what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and detach this from the EC2 instance itself, and then I'll try to attach it to a new EC2 instance as an extra volume, and then I'll be able to go ahead inside this volume and see which folder, which part of the file is actually being corrupted, which is not helping me to boot my system. So if you remember, during our childhood days, in our Windows computer itself, specifically if we have two hard disks, there was something called as jumper which was available, right? So this basically that decides whether the extra volume that I'm going to attach it to is going to be a master or a slave. I'm not sure how many of you remember about this jumper part. So I'm not sure, because we do use laptops these days a lot. Earlier in our childhood days, whenever we used to have that normal CPUs at our home, we used to specifically get one hard disk which was root volume, which was called as a master. Now if I want to increase the size of my computer, specifically I'll have to add more volumes to it, right? So how do we do it? Specifically, I go into market, I purchase one more hard disk, and I will be able to attach it to my computer. But when there are two hard disks inside the same computer, I'll have to decide which one is going to be a root volume and which one is going to be a normal one. So there is something called as jumper, which basically helps me to decide whether it is a master volume or it is a slave. Let's show you if it is available. Yeah, here it is, right? If you see this diagram, I'll show you the better one. Yeah, here it is. See, this is how the jumper appears. White color is one that jumper appears to be. So if I have a CPU at my home, and if I purchase this hard disk from the market, let's say I purchase 3 hard disks and I want to attach it to my Windows computer at this moment of time, I'll have to decide which is the main hard disk from where the operating system is going to boot. And how is the computer going to identify? It is basically going to identify with the help of this jumper. So if the jumper is in first place, that is going to be a master. If the jumper is going to be in any other place, it is going to be basically a slave. So that is how we used to do it earlier. So this is the one, it currently doesn't have anything. So specifically you get a jumper and you have to attach it like this. So similarly, what happens is, now let's say, as the question is here from the Rahul, like he asks, what happens if my root volume is corrupted, right? I need to attach it to some other computer to see what is wrong in that volume from where it was trying to boot up. right? So what I'll specifically do, first thing is I'll close the EC2 instance, and then I'll detach this volume from here, and then I'll be able to attach this volume to some other new EC2 instance. And when I log in inside that new EC2 instance, I'll try to create a mount point. I'll try to go inside this volume and check out what is the problem, right? Specifically, if I'm a technical engineer, I'll be able to know with the help of the error that I was getting before, where to go ahead and check it out, like, and which file is corrupted, and then I'll be able to resolve it back. Yeah, now how can we identify the detached? As I told you, if it is in green color, it means it is basically in use, and if it is in blue color, which means it is still available, right? I can go ahead and attach it to any EC2 instance. I'm not sure about any other steps in terms of the corrupted volume yet, because I have not come across that situation until date. So maybe I'll have to just check out if there are any other steps that we need to execute in the corrupted volume. So that was all about the snapshots. Now let's go ahead and check out the actions which are available in the volumes. What can I do with it? So when I click on any of the volume and click on actions, the first option I see is modify volume. So the first method that I showed you how to increase the size of volume is a traditional way of doing it. Recently, around 6 to 8 months back, this option of modify volume has been put in place, with the help of which you don't have to create any snapshot anymore. You can directly modify the volume size on the fly. But before you do this action, you just first need to detach this volume from the EC2 instance and do it for a safer side. Because if some input output operations are happening on the disk, then that is not reliable to go ahead and increase the volume size on the fly. Like, let's say this is the one which is of currently 5 GB. Now let's say I want to increase it to 7 GB, right? So you see, I'll not be able to see the modify option itself. For the first thing is I'll have to unmount it, and then once the unmounting is done, let's see if it's unmounted is done. Yeah, it's not mounted anymore. I'll have to first go and detach it. Once I detach it, only then I'll be able to see it in as available option. Right now, if I go ahead and click on this volume, and then say actions, and then say okay, since it is a magnetic volume, I'm not going to get this option. It is only available for the SSD drives. So let's say I want to modify the volume. This is of 2 GB. I can go ahead and say modify volume, and then it does ask me. Currently, it is general purpose SSD drive, right? So for the magnetic standard, I'll not be able to increase the size as such. I'll be able to do it only for these four, that is GP2, IO1, SC1, and the ST1. And then let's say I want to increase the size to 4 GB. I just click on modify. It says whatever operating system file, whatever file system is being built on this. Currently we have built ext4 file system. So the same is going to get extended automatically to the full complete volume from 2 to 4 GB. And it is going to take a little while, so you will have to wait for it, right? It says it may take some time for the performance changes to take full effect, and it automatically extends the OS file system on the volume for the newly allocated space as well, right? So let's go ahead and click on yes. I'm okay for that. Now you will see that this volume is currently being modified. Right, currently it is in yellow color. We have to wait until it becomes blue in color, right? So basically the operation is happening, and you will be able to see the percentage here. Basically it's trying to optimize. So currently it is 24% done. So that is the first thing on the first part of the actions in the volume. So we can actually now change the size of a volume on the fly. But what is the recommended practice? First, always unmount the volume and then detach the volume from the instance, and then try to increase the size and then reattach it back and mount it back. Why do we do this? Because if there are any input output operations happening on the disk, then that is actually going to corrupt my complete disk, right? Because whenever we are trying to modify the size, it is basically trying to extend the file system, right? So that should happen very legibly without any hassles. And the next action is create a snapshot. So we just learned how to create a snapshot. So if you want to go ahead and delete this volume, just go ahead and click on this and then just say delete volume, and you'll be able to straight away delete this volume. And if you want to attach it, you can just click on the attach volume, and then we have detach volume to detach it. And if you think your volume is not getting detached, you can just use this method of force detach volume. And then we have change auto enable input output setting. Let's check out what it is. Yes, there could be a chance if we are trying to modify the volume, if it is already attached and some operations are happening on it. Rest apart, there are no chances. That's why they always say if you want to play around with the volumes at any point of time, first detach it from the instance as well as unmount it completely and then do it. So even when the root volume, specifically this happens with the case in the real time, we have to usually modify the size of root volume. So in that case, how do we do it? I have to stop out all the input output operations happening on it. And the best way to stop the input output operations happening on the root volume is just by shutting down the instance itself. So I have to completely shut down the instance so that there are no input output operations happening on the root volume, and then I'll be able to modify the size of root volume. So this is something new, auto enable. I'll just check it out. So when I say auto enable input output, so it is basically going to disable whenever it is not being in use, So it is automatically going to disable it. Like if you see here in this diagram, it says input output status is being disabled, right? So whenever the volume is not in use, it will be keeping it in disabled state. And if I start using it, it automatically comes into the enabled state. And then finally we have the last option, that is editing the tags. So these are all what we can do with the help of volumes. So specifically, sometimes they will ask you a question on how do I modify the size of a root volume itself. Now root volume is of size 8 GB. How do I modify it? As I said, if you want to modify the size of any volume, first thing is you have to close down all the input operations. So how do we do it? For specifically for a root volume, I'll have to shut down the EC2 instance itself. And because block store volumes are something like running memory, so that is a second name of the block store volumes. So if currently my computer is running, right, so all these programs are running behind the scene. So how these are running? Because I have a block based device inside my computer which is currently running, right? So in which I have installed the operating system, and it is continuously running, and with the help of which I'm able to run these programs. Similarly, the root device will always have some programs which are running. So that's why it's always recommended to shut down the instance first and then take a snap. If you want to do with the snapshot part, you can do it as well. So you can take a snapshot, and from the snapshot you can create a new volume which is of higher size. That is one way of doing it. Or you can also go, once this instance is shut down, you can straight away go ahead and click on the root volume and click on the modify volume, and it's going to modify the size. So that question could come up sometimes in the interview on how do we modify the size of a root volume. So any questions here on the volumes and the snapshots lab part of the section? Sure, I'll just give a overview on what all kind of issues we do face in real time with S3, EC2, and IAM. Yeah, I have some of them. I'll share it with you guys on. Any more questions before we close for the day? Basically, there are 5 certifications which are available. So let me tell you the names. In the meantime, while the certification page loads, I'll just go ahead and remove the extra volume that we have. So always clean up the things, whatever you are doing after the lab portion is done. That is the best practice. Or if you forget to do it, sometimes you may attract the charges unnecessarily. Yeah, so these are all the certifications that we can basically do in the AWS. So these foundational things have just recently come up. It was not available earlier. That's why it says optional, 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 right? However, these are the important things. Like at associate level, we have three base certifications: AWS Solution Certified Associate Architect, Associate Developer, and the Associate Administrator. So if you really are keen on getting into architect area, then the best one would be Certified Solutions Architect Associate. And if you are a developer or an administrator who want to pursue a career in this area, then the developer associate or a sysops administrator associate is preferred one. But however, after looking at all three exams, I feel that Solutions Architect Associate is the first one to get started with, because in order to go ahead and write down a sysops administrator exam as well, I would require a little knowledge on how the things are being set up in the architect level, right? So you can choose any one of them. Of course, you can directly go for sysops administrator, but that would require a little more information on AWS before we can start off for that exam. And if you want to pursue the career in as architect itself, then you can go ahead and pursue this architect professional. And if you want to go towards the DevOps area, then you just need to attain any one of them. There's a developer or sysops, and you can straight away go ahead and do the DevOps professional here. So those are all the certifications that we basically have. Apart from that, if you want to go for specialty certifications, currently they have advanced networking specialty and the certified big data specialty. So those are all the overall certifications we have. Yeah, we are covering up the architect and the developer part. SysOps, we are covering up to 70% of our content. 30% content on the administration side changes off. So in most of the cases, if we check out, we are covering all three. But yes, architect and the developer, we are covering up completely 100%. But SysOps, we are just covering up 70% of our course content. Okay, then thanks all. So we'll meet back tomorrow again at the same time to continue the session on the next part of our topic. The next part of our topic is mostly on the instance metadata placement groups and other things. We'll go ahead and explore them. Have a great day, and we'll meet back tomorrow.